Okay, we are recording. Good evening, everybody. This is Tiffany Farrell speaking from the Southern Maryland Audubon Society. Welcome to another in our installments of lectures. And tonight we have very special guests, our friends Gwen Brewer and George Jett. They are going to be talking with us tonight about Ghana, birds, butterflies, and mammals. So they're going to tell us all about a trip they took there just a couple of years ago, and I'm very excited about that. Thank you guys so much for joining us. They did give us a little bio. So for those of you who don't know Gwen and George, George Jett and Gwen Brewer have led Maryland field trips and presented talks on their travels together for bird clubs for more than 15 years. Gwen manages the science program for rare species at the Maryland Department of Natural Resources and previously was a professor at Frostburg State University. George is retired from the Environmental Protection Agency and is an avid nature photographer. Check out his wonderful photos at georgejett.net. When not looking for birds, mammals, and herps in far-off places, they enjoy birding and kayaking from their property near Jug Bay in southern Anne Arundel County. Welcome, George and Gwen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tiffany, and thanks everybody who's joined us this evening. We look forward to reliving this wonderful trip that we had a few years ago, and we have a few participants from the trip, and in fact, one of the leaders is on with us tonight, Foster Frimpong from Ghana. So that's very exciting. I'm going to start out and then we will switch at some point along the way here. We're going to actually give you a little bit more than birds, butterflies, and mammals about Ghana like we usually do, but we wanted to start with this slide just to show for those of you that aren't familiar with where Ghana is, you can see where it's located on the continent of Africa. And we will say Akwaba and welcome. We can have Foster pronounce that correctly for us later on.
They mean the same.
Yeah, Akwaba.
Akwaba. Thank you, Foster. There we go. We're going to give a little quick overview of the country of Ghana. You can see a little closer up map here. And one of the features that you notice on the map is this very, very large Lake Volta. And Lake Volta, in fact, is the largest artificial lake in the world. Population is a little over 31 million, over half of it urban, so lots of folks in the cities, but also lots of folks out in the country. It's a presidential republic, and it's been independent from the United Kingdom since 1957. It's about half the size of our state of Oregon. The official language in Ghana is English, though a number of other languages are spoken. And we've got a number of different kinds of major industries and products that come from Ghana, including mining for gold and bauxite primarily, lumber or timber products, some light manufacturing, aluminum smelting, food processing. And then in terms of agricultural products, cocoa is a big one. Lots of great chocolate coming from Ghana. Also rice, coffee, cassava or tapioca, peanuts, corn, shea nuts, and bananas. A little bit about Ghana natural history. We've got a map on the left that you can, where you see something other than kind of a background green color, darker green color, are areas with different kinds of protection in Ghana. And the red circles indicate the main places that we visited. And we'll be taking a look at some of the habitats and what we saw in those places as we go through the talk this evening. We visited different kinds of habitats: savanna, tropical rainforest, semi-deciduous forest, mangroves, coast wetlands. Ghana has over 3,600 species of plants. And just kind of keep in mind the size of the state of Oregon and think about half of it, and all of this biodiversity is in that landmass. Over 900 species of butterflies, over 200 species of amphibians and reptiles, getting pretty close to 800 different species of birds, and we recorded as a group 344 species during about a 3-week trip. And we also saw a lot of mammals. We had 61 different species of mammals, and there are 225 approximately in the country. Here's just a picture with some of the nice forest habitats. We've got folks on the trail on the left in Atiwa, and just some of the amazing trees that are found in these habitats. On the right, you can see some of the neat root structures, above ground root structure that some of these plants get, and also some of the trees get these large kind of buttresses. And then this was a neat tree here with a lot of different kind of root areas coming down. Well, the first place that we visited on the trip was Atiwa Forest, and unfortunately the Atiwa Range Forest Reserve has been threatened by a number of things in recent years. It's a real butterfly paradise. There are many hundreds of species of butterflies that have been found in this area. Nice forest that's left there. In addition to gold mining, bauxite mining has been a real threat to this area in recent times. And hopefully progress is being made and agreements will be made to help set aside this special area. When you have butterflies, you've got to have some nice nectar plants, and not all of these are nectar plants, but these were some of the neat different flowers that we saw. Maybe the most striking here is this blood lily down in the lower right. We visited another really special place called Kakum National Park, and Kakum National Park is famous for its canopy walkway. It has 7 suspension bridges. They form about 1,000 feet long of canopy walkway, suspended up to about 130 feet above the forest floor. And you can see the wonderful forest here. You can also see that even though these are 130 feet above the forest floor, we've got trees that are extending up above that. Here's one of the walkways coming over, and then there are 7 different trees that have this kind of support structure, a platform built on it, so you can walk along these walkways and go from platform structure to platform structure. And this is kind of a close-up view of this very sturdy and well done canopy walk. And George is laughing because of the next slide. You'll see why. So here's Bob Ridgely, one of our trip participants, very happily walking along the walkway. And here's George waving from the walkway. And wow, this is really incredible, walking above the forest. And then there's somebody who really doesn't like heights very well at all, just hoping that they will make it to the end of the walkway. This whole walkway experience was a real trial for me, but it was well worth it. And in fact, we did all survive. I really appreciated this sign that they have over in the entry and exit area there. So here's "You survived," and there's Foster in the middle. We actually had more in the group than that, and they all did survive. But this is what you get to see from that canopy walkway. I mean, just amazing. All the many different layers of this tropical forest, these emergent trees sticking way up above the canopy, and just full of birds and other animals. Some of these trees are over 300 years old and reach a height of over 160 feet. There are almost 300 species of birds and over 500 species of butterflies in this national park, which covers about 400 square miles. So really an amazing place. We also came across some smaller wetlands, like what you see in the upper left, and some lovely streams. And then at the bottom is a Ramsar site. So it's a site that's recognized globally as an important area, in this case for waterbirds and shorebirds. And this shallow wetland area, you can kind of see some of the industrial looking buildings in the background there. It's near the port of Tema along the coast. And along the coast also are some of the maybe more well-known cultural features of Ghana, some of the castles or really fortresses that were used in the gold and slave trades through hundreds of years. And along the coast as well, we saw some of the wooden fishing boats in action and even some boat building going on of these typical wooden fishing boats. We also visited some much drier habitats, some savanna and grassland habitats in Shy Hills on the top and Moley National Park on the bottom. And in both of these areas, they do periodic controlled burns to maintain the open areas in these kinds of habitats. And also, when you can see, even amidst some of the prescribed burn areas, there were some very large termite mounds. One of the highlights, certainly, of a visit to Ghana is Moley National Park as well. It's Ghana's largest protected area, covering over 700 square miles. And here's a picture at the bottom along a trail. So it has some flatter savanna areas and then some dry forest areas. And then we also, of course, can always find birds and other interesting animals in agricultural landscapes. Got a nice cacao tree there on the left with the pods growing out, the source of chocolate and an important export for Ghana. And a cacao plantation here on the right that we were working through. And then we saw a lot of these small agricultural plots where people have bananas, they have papaya, they have a variety of crops that they're growing for their own use or maybe for sale in the markets. We had excellent food and lodging. Here's an example of a couple of the hotels that we stayed in. And then we also stayed in this very interesting tent camp at another place called Ankasa down in southwestern Ghana. And we've got these 2-room tents here. A series of them were placed under a tarp to give some extra protection from the rain, and a nice open air dining area there. And the crew at the top there took great care of us, the cooks and the drivers and the guides. But one night, the ants arrived. We woke up in the night and found that the ants were on the move, and there were lines of ants like this one going throughout the tent camp. And I'm afraid that that dissuaded some from remaining at the tent camp, and George and Bob Ridgely went to stay in these small cabins nearby the next night.
They weren't army ants.
They weren't army ants. They don't have army ants there. And in fact, I have a little video here of some of the ants. As you look at the video, notice how there are ants moving in the middle, and the ants over the top are forming essentially like a little cage of protection over the ants that are moving along in the line.
Whoops, one got out, 2 got out.
And you can see some of the bigger sort of soldier ants there protecting them. Lodging at Moley National Park, we had these nice small huts, but a main attraction of this was what was out behind the huts. So if you went out of your little cabin and you looked just over this wall here, you were looking down on this pool that often had a lot of elephants in it, busy drinking and bathing and just generally enjoying the water on a hot day. Well, that was a real treat to get to watch that right outside of our cabins. And a little bit on some of the typical foods. We had very nice groundnut or peanut soups, and banku, which is a kind of a meal made from corn and cassava meal to go with it. Down here we have some red, which is a black-eyed pea stew. It's red because of the red palm oil that's used to make it. Some nice sweet fried plantains. And then also one of my favorites, Kelly Welly, spicy fried plantains. And at one point along the way, we came along a palm wine production area there. Some little palm wine production. So here we're collecting the sap from the palm. In this case, it's been cut down and the sap is being collected in plastic bottles. The liquid is kind of been fermenting in barrels, and then it's put in, and we're doing a little distilling here to make it stronger. And here we go, another satisfied customer, Fiona Reed, one of our trip organizers walking away with a nice bottle full of palm wine in hand. This is an example of some of the transportation. We rode in different kinds of things. This was at the Ankasa tent camp. We had these Land Rovers. Sometimes we had more open vehicles for riding at night. And some of the other transportation means that we saw in the country, lots of buses, and all of these piles and piles of things are going to go up on top of that bus. This car, or a taxi actually, was particularly well loaded up, taking things from one place to another. And then I think one of the most unusual riders I've seen on a truck before was this goat. It was riding in front of us along the road.
A long way on the top.
Yes, the goat stayed on the top for a long way. And then there's walking. And there's not only people walking everywhere, but people carrying things on their heads in a very impressive manner to those of us here in this country who don't do this sort of thing. Loaves of bread, lots of cushions, a sewing machine, fish, and water. And I just like to put this slide in to tell everyone to be thankful every day that you have running water in your house, that you don't need to go to a communal spigot and fill up many water buckets or very large containers like this woman and carry it on your head back home. Oh, just a kind of a typical little scene along the way. And then at the bottom, a typical looking school, and this one has a neat story to it. It was funded with the help of Ashanti African Tours, who was our local tour group or tour leader. And it was a way that they are giving back to the local community. This is in the area of a very special bird that you'll see later on. And it's a way of trying to help support the community and encourage the community to keep conserving the special things that they have. Market day, lots of wonderful fresh fruits and vegetables, great pineapples, all kinds of products, including watermelons, grapefruits, lots of good things. And then some other interesting things to us that we saw along the roadside. We don't have kind of big malls, big shopping centers. And so really everything could be found along the side of the road on these small shops that people would have. So kitchen appliances, pots and pans, exercise equipment, furniture. These were some handmade pots and dishes. Clothing, including seamstresses located along the road, working on their sewing machines, sewing lots of beautiful fabrics up. And at some point, those clothes need to be washed. This was a laundry day up in the northeastern part of the country near Mole National Park. And there were some unusual and very friendly shop names as well. So here's the No Weapon Cold Store, Do Good Enterprises, and who would not want to get their phone repaired or their DVD at the Love for All, Hatred for None little shop.
Always the one about those.
And one of the interesting things that we did on this trip, we spent a lot of time looking for mammals and other things at night. And one of those things at night were moths. So you set up a nice sheet or just put a bright light propped against a nice white wall. And you can get some beautiful, amazing moths. Fiona Reed may know what these are, but I don't. So apologies, but they were certainly lovely to see, really a treat to get these nice different varieties of moths at night. And there are some other things that we do on some of these trips where we look for mammals. Culverts can be a really interesting place, and under bridges besides caves. So Foster, Dawn, and Andrew are having a good look under this culvert area on a bridge here. And in some of the culverts, you are rewarded. Here's a lovely bat, a slit-faced bat, and we've got the parent on the left and the little gray baby on the right, and they're wrapped up together, hanging underneath in this culvert. So it's a good place to be cooler during the daytime. And here's Andrew, also one of our guides on the trip, carrying a net. We're heading into this cave at Shy Hills. And inside the cave, it's difficult to tell because they're so jammed in there. This is solid bats, many, many, many bats, jammed up into a crevice. And we got one. Fiona's getting it out of the net. And here's a look at what was en masse over here on the right, Egyptian tomb bats. And we had some more bats on the trip and some that we got photos of. This was definitely one of our favorites, the yellow-winged bat. It looks like a yellowing leaf. It's resting in the foliage during the heat of the day. And there will be indeed on this bush some little yellowish leaves that are just the same yellow color. Really nice bat. And then we even found bats roosting under a little bit of a road bank overhang, bonito roundleaf bat. And one of the highlights, certainly in the bat world in Ghana, are the hammerbats. Male and female, as you can see, look quite different. Male with the very elongated forefront of the face there on the left, female on the right. Really neat bats. And I'm going to turn up our volume here and play what this bat sounds like at night. The hammerbat males gather together in what's called a lek, which birds also do, something like prairie chickens, sharp-tailed grouse in the Midwest do this. They gather together and they call at night, in the case of the hammerbat, to attract females. And this is what they sound like and where they got their hammer name. Second, I've got to move this so I can turn this on here. So hopefully you heard that. I hope.
Highlighted
But
trip.
it's not something, a noise that you, or a sound that you expect coming out of a bat.
Okay.
Okay, time for Mr. Jett to take it away.
All right. Well, we had a great time, and I want to thank Foster and Andrew for their help and assistance, especially with the butterflies. Andrew is, he's, I guess, one of the premier butterfly people, maybe in Africa, but he's the guy who put together the butterfly checklist of 930 plus species. And he helped me with the IDs, which was really great because I'd say there's butterfly that looks like a swallowtail, yada, yada, yada. But what it are is there's 930 butterflies so far confirmed. Now, maybe in a year or two, it'll be 1,000. That depends on how much work is continued. This is a mocker swallowtail. This is a common red Charasis. I'm corrected here, thank you. And as you go along, we'll see this huge diversity in the butterflies. We didn't even get into things like the moths and the skippers. What happened to that one? Okay.
That's a good question.
There we go. Widespread forester. And I guess they're in the forest, so they're called foresters. The Ghana Cerces forester. There's a whole group of butterflies called foresters. The thing that I liked was, I'm going to hold it this way. See, this is what Andrew put together. Thank you, buddy. And it's got all kinds of nifty stuff in there, but it's invaluable if you're going into a place like Ghana, which, okay, we've got decent information on birds that we can get here, but we didn't get that until we got to Ghana. All right, here's some other butterflies, a red patch. Why is it called a red patch? Got a red patch. Western fairy playboy reminds me of hair streaks that we have here in the U.S. And then we've got a whole group of other critters, the smoky Bomastitis, the dark blue pansy. And when I was a kid growing up, you'd never call me a pansy. Uncertain nymph, that's a very probable name for this animal. And here's a common nymph, which maybe is common. Okay, now we got some HERPS. We didn't have real good luck on the HERPS, but we had some interesting, I got to talk to that thing.
Talk to the iPad.
Hi, Pat, how you doing? The HERPS, these are Agama agama. It's the common reptile, or herp reptile. That's what lizard. That's what it is. There's 6 species of agamas in Ghana, and that's the male, and that's the female. But in Africa as a whole, there's 37 species of agama lizards, which is pretty diverse, and they cover quite a large area of Africa, so they're adaptable. We have some other skinks. We've got, I think it's tropical skink. I haven't got my answer back from Foster, but we'll go with it. African 5-line skink looks a lot like our common 5-line skink here in the US. And then there's the rainbow skink male. If these are a mistake, it's my mistake. And the only crocodile we had was this pygmy crocodile. They're not all that big, 5 to 6 feet. They're most often in fresh water, but can be found in mangroves. But I think like any crocodile, you don't want to, check its teeth out to see if some bird's eating the meat left over. Mammals. These are probably Fiona's favorite group. This is a bush elephant. And he says, I'm hungry and heavy. You don't argue with the elephant in the room. He weighs about 10 tons. Okay, what else did I miss? All right, we've got primates. Are you doing primates or I am? All right.
I'll do the monkeys.
Okay, she'll do the monkeys. 12 species of primates in Ghana. And this is a Calyptrix monkey. They were young at a nest site, I guess. And they are about 1.5 to 2 feet long and 7.5 to 12 pounds in weight. They're sexually dimorphic, which I guess is pretty interesting. Some mammals aren't and some are, just like birds. The olive baboon was the one that was most common we found. And they are in actually 25 African countries. They weigh 24, or they're about 24 to 28 inches long, females and males, and they're 22 to 82 pounds in weight range. Then we've got is this the, okay.
Yeah, I'll do this
I'm
one.
going to switch back because I don't do monkey spirits.
We visited a very interesting place, one of the few monkey villages in Ghana, and this one was called Boabang. And in Boabang, they have a different kind of a relationship with the monkeys in particular. They really respect the monkeys and take care of the monkeys. And we have got the opportunity to walk on the trails, and the monkeys, of course, are used to people. In fact, they get little treats and come out and really got to see them close up. So these are some lovely Lowe's monkey. George had to put in the joke, not Home Depot monkeys. They're a medium-sized monkey. They eat wild and cultivated fruits, also seeds, invertebrates, grubs, even small amphibians and lizards. And one of the really spectacular monkeys that we saw in the monkey village forest area that's conserved for the monkeys to live in were these Geoffroy's pied Colobus. You can see one on the right, and then the impressive tails that they have on the left. They weigh about 4.5 pounds for males, 4 pounds for females. Their body alone is 26 inches to 25 inches, but they have these very long, lovely tails. Really beautiful animal. And part of the reverence for the monkeys extends to taking care of them after they die as well. This is an area called the Monkey Cemetery that they have just outside of the town area there. You can see at the top there are a lot of different markers on the graves, and the bottom I've zoomed in a bit so that you can see they haven't given the monkeys names, but they tell which kind of monkey it was, and then when they buried it. So they have a lot of respect for the monkeys. They're conserving the forest here for the monkeys to live in. They need the food that's found there, and then they take care of them in the monkey cemetery after death.
Here, it's on here.
Sorry, we're having sticky problems on the keyboard again. Sorry, here we go. So may the monkey spirits be with you. And on one of our nighttime jaunts, we had an opportunity to see this beautiful Hausa genet. And that night in Mole National Park, we also saw a leopard, but the photo is a sort of a fuzzy rendition of a spotted tail and body moving through the forest. So I didn't include it, but that was definitely an exciting thing to see. And this Hausa genet, just a lovely animal up in a tree.
So we were doing that eating them.
And there are 13 cat-like species in Ghana.
The reason you're looking at this genet photograph is I didn't go out that night with Gwen and Fiona and Dawn and others. I went out the next night, and the only thing I could get was at least decent light on the tail of the genet, and I felt it would be improper to show you my genitalia.
Oh, it's too bad we can't hear all the laughter that's happening right now.
I thought about it. Okay. Tree squirrels. What are we doing here? This one? All right, there's 12 squirrel species in Ghana. And this is a green squirrel. This is slender-tailed squirrel. And these are Gambian sun squirrels. And we had a few others, but when you're doing a program like this of everything you ever want to know about Ghana, you can't do it in an hour. So we'll do this. We have some ungulates, and these are things like western bushbuck, western cob, and the hartebeest. The bushbuck is 35 inches tall, weighs about 45 to 99, 99 to 176 pounds, depending on the sex. The western cob is 3+ feet and weighs about 200 pounds, I guess, on average. The hartebeest is a bigger animal, 220 to 440, and it's 7 to 8 feet. Okay, now we got the ground squirrel. This is out of order. The ground squirrel was at Mole, and it was a neat treat. There's a few ground squirrels in the country, but this animal is about 1 foot long and weighs about 2 pounds, and it's probably because of the poaching in Ghana was difficult to get close to these animals on foot, so we were shooting from the van at times, and if you did do anything, got out of the car, the animals just bolted. They just were, they were aware that humans killed, and they didn't want to be one of them that did get killed. This is Nolan's warthog. It's 3 to 5 feet, and 25 to 150 pounds was the range I found. You want to watch out for these tusks because these animals can be pretty dangerous, especially this one had young, so we kept our distance. Now we're doing birds. And the birds, as of August 2019, there were about 770 species of birds in Ghana. And the thing that I found rather interesting was none of them are endemic. And that could well be because countries around them have similar habitat, and it's a fairly small country compared to places like Kenya and South Africa and other larger African countries. Some of the species we had were African pygmy duck, goose, excuse me, the great spotted cuckoo flying at about 1,000 miles an hour, the African green pigeon. They have good diversity of pigeons there as well, and doves. The red-headed malimbe, I think there's about 4 or 5 species of malimbe in Ghana. And one of the things I learn when I go to places like this, there's whole groups of birds I've never heard of before, like violet turco, the malimbe. We had some high flyers overhead. Hooded vulture were fairly common. We had yellow-headed kite, which were even more abundant. And then we had Hadada ibis. But because we were in mostly forested areas, we didn't have as many shorebirds or wading birds on our trip, but we did have a good variety of the other groups. The raptors, these are always popular with people, depending on how you count them. There's about 48 species of kites, vultures, eagles, and hawks in Ghana, and that's a hell of a diverse country with this group of animals. We got the lizard buzzard, and we got the Eurasian marsh harrier, and we've got the grasshopper buzzard as examples of raptors that we had. We also had other falcons like hobbies and kestrels and such, but you can't do too much here, so you do what you can. Now, there's 12 species of rails, gallinals, and allies in Ghana. This is a Nkundalingu rail, and I'd never heard of it. And they were yelling at me, come, Kundalingu, I'm tired, leave me alone. And finally, Gwen came down and said, it's a bird, it's in a tree. It's not Superman. So I went into the forest, exhausted with my camera, and fortunately the bird was tolerant of me, and I was able to get this flight, or this shot of this arboreal rail in the rainforest. And it's a big bird. It's about 1 pound in weight, so it's probably hunted quite a bit. And yes, it is a rail, and it's in a tree. Okay, this is sort of a little story. There's over 50 species of plovers, shorebirds, and my favorite, and Bob Ridgely didn't understand why I got so excited about a collared pratincoll, is because for 40 years I've been wanting to see one. And he wanted to see the Egyptian plover. And I'd already seen it, so I said, yay, big deal. You know, it's the Egyptian plover. This was my favorite, and I believe this is Bob's favorite. So both of them are spectacular, lovely animals, and I was glad that I could get images of both. And then there's the Senegal thick-knee in a night excursion. I didn't do all the night excursions because I didn't realize it at the time. I was sick, but that's okay. And this bird wanted to know, doesn't anyone around here sleep? Because it's out there minding its own business. And these people pull up in a truck and put a big light on him and wake him up. So then we've got another group or two of animals called the rollers and the cocals. This is a blue-throated roller on the walkway, as I recall. And it sees a lot of people, so it wasn't all that skittish, and it stayed so I could get close to it. There's also the black cocal. This is a juvenile, and I think they're further north up in Ghana. And the third cocal, I was able to get a blue-headed cocal was on a trip into Tiwa. But there's another group of cocals that we got some shots on, but we don't want to, you know, belabor the thing tonight with every one of them. All right, owls. 15 species of owls or owlets. This is a red-chested owlet in the middle, and an African wood owl at the camp at where the ants were. I guess it doesn't eat ants because there were a lot of ants and only one owl. We've got the pearly-eyed owl, which is a fairly common savanna shrub type, diurnal owl, similar to the ferruginous pygmy owl, and some of the owls in places like Argentina, Chile, where they're out in the daytime and they are bird eaters. And if you mimic the pearly-eyed owl, you get the little passerines to come look for you. So it's like a screech owl here. And we had some nightjars. We had about 5 species. The ones that we got decent shots on were either a redneck or Eurasian. This was one that there was a lot of discussion about whether it was a redneck, which might have been the first Ghana record, or a Eurasian, which is rare but found there. And the evidence is not in yet, and I'm trying to get that. Long-tailed nightjars were along the road occasionally, and then we had this standard wing, which is weird to me. I'd never seen anything with wings like that. The standard wing.
These are the tail.
Oh, they're the tail.
The tail pieces.
Oh, wow. That's like a, yeah.
It's got these odd little long
Yeah.
tail pieces coming up.
Like a motmot. It's a ground motmot, maybe. Okay, there's 11 species of nightjars in Ghana, and we were fortunate enough to see and get photographs of a few. Then there's your kingbirds. Kingfisher, this damn thing's in the way. Kingfisher, 12 species in Ghana. We have the pied kingfisher, which I've had in a lot of different places in Africa, Ethiopia, South Africa, etc. So they're widely distributed. The blue-headed is less widely distributed. And the one that was a bit shocking and maybe not as common is the chocolate back kingfisher. We had that at Atiwa. Then we have some bee eaters. There's 11 species of bee eaters in Ghana, and these are representatives. The white-throated, this is the red-throated, and this is the black bee eater. And the bee eaters are fairly cooperative. It's only when they're hunting bees and other insects do they move out from their perch, but like a lot of the dragonflies and such, they come back to favorite perch, and if you just wait, you can get a decent shot on them. And we have hornbills and hoopoes. There weren't as many hornbills in Ghana as in Ethiopia or maybe in Gambia and Senegal, but we got this pied hornbill, and then we had a handful of hoopoes. We had a greenwood hoopoe fly across the road, and that was kind of a treat to see and have his wings expand like that. The barbets and the tinkerbirds are maybe one of the more populous species. There's 13 in Ghana, and there's the Violet's barbet, the hairy-breasted barbet, the spotted barbet, and the red-rumped tinkerbird, and the speckled tinkerbird. And I suspect maybe tinkerbirds are smaller than the barbets, and there may be some other structural differences, but I'd never heard of a tinkerbird till I saw one down there. Okay, we got swallows, and we make no swallow jokes. There's 19 species of swallows and martins. The representatives here are lesser striped martin. We have the rufous-chested martin. Both of these might be reminiscent or superficially like barn swallows with their forked tails and such, but they're completely different, and they're two of the 19 species that you could encounter in Ghana. Sunbirds. Sunbirds are, I guess, an African or Western world, Eastern world it is, species similar to our hummingbirds. They eat nectar and insects and such, much like hummingbirds do. Examples are a splendid hummingbird, the buff-throated hummingbird. As you can see, it's waiting to get a dip into that flower. And we got the blue mustached hummingbird, which was up at Atiwa. And you can find them at different elevations. I think unlike hummingbirds, which seem to be more drawn to higher elevations, sunbirds are up and down the altitude of the country. Then there's the less appreciated birds, like the plain-backed pipit, one of the 5 species of pipits in the country. And even less appreciated are the 17-year-old flycatchers that are in Ghana. This is a Usher's flycatchers. I guess if he was working at a theater, he would work you to your seat or something. Then there's the miscellaneous songbirds that we encountered. There's the black-crowned shagra. There's the rufous-sided broadbill, which Bob was excited about. And then there's a bird I thought was kind of an insulting name. It's called a simple leaf love. So one of the questions that Dawn asked on the trip, is there a special needs leaf love? And we didn't really find any of those and didn't get a decent answer, so we'll have to just leave that as a question. And what do we got here? Miscellaneous birds continued. 11 species of cisticolas. This is a croaking cisticola. And when people in the US complain about the impidinet flycatchers, they're easy compared to cisticolas in Africa. So be lucky that you get a decent look at one and a decent shot. There's 4 species of malimbis. This is the red-headed here. This is a rufous cisticola. Now that's pretty wide-ranging from the croaking to the rufous cisticola. They're both fairly easy to identify, but there must be 15 or so. No, there's 10 in between, or 9 in between of these two that are difficult. And there's the brush petronia. The fond memory I have here is we were at Mole, and we were fixing to go out into the field, and all of a sudden a flock of birds came into a tree behind our cabin. And they said, well, we need to get going. And I said, no, there's birds here. And we all stayed. And I've never seen a feeding flock as large and as diverse as the one that this bush petronia was in. And it was really just fascinating. And then finally, we got the white-tailed alethi, which is likely something similar to a thrush here. And then we got a whole bunch of weavers, 14 species of weavers, of which the grosbeak weaver is one of the easy to identify. And the black-necked weaver is another one that we got close to. And then there was the suspense bird, the drive all day, walk half the night or something, and sit for the Pickathardes stakeout. And this is what we had to go up this mountainside and exhaust ourselves, and then we had to wait at this pile of junk in the forest.
Big rock face.
Big rock
face here in the back.
And they like rocks, and they, I guess, sleep there. The Picathardes, or the rock fowl, are the small genus of two species forming a family in rainforest and tropical West and Central Africa. They're unfeathered heads and feed on insects and non-migratory, being dependent on specialized rocky jungle habitat. That was probably the bird of the trip for most people. You go all day and you work all night or whatever to climb this hill to find where this bird might come into this rock area. So that's the yellow-headed Picathardes. And the other one, I think you have to go to places like Cameroon to find, and I'll wait on that one. That should have done sooner. Okay, these are acknowledgements. We've got the Ashanti African Tours, in particular, Andrew Amankwaa. I guess Foster could help with these pronunciations, and there's Foster, of course, and William, who's working with them. But Andrew and Foster were really the cream of the crop for us. That's the website for Ashanti. Fiona Reed, our favorite bird leader, or mammal leader, or whatever leader in the world. You know, she's kind of like, she's the lady of rats and bats. So if you're really interested in that stuff, hang out with Fiona. Then we've got the Ghana Field Guide by Birds of Ghana by Nick Barrow and Ron Dempsey. It's easily available, it's inexpensive, and it's fairly up to date. And then we got the birds, I did the Wikipedia free encyclopedia I plug because I use them quite a bit when I'm trying to research these things before and after trips, so that I might have at least something to say in speaking in English. Butterflies of Ghana by Ashanti, mostly put together by Andrew, and it's from Torben's Butterflies Book of West Africa. We want to say thank you and Madasi. That's it.
Not quite it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
you want to contact Foster?
So we would certainly encourage you to consider a visit to Ghana. As I said, the official language is English. You can see the wonderful diversity of things that we saw, and we were really well taken care of and just had a great time. Here's Foster's email and phone information, and also Ashanti African Tours. You saw their website earlier. It's ashantiafricantours.com, and they do different kinds of tours. Ours was a kind of a combination birds and mammals, and we also got a lot of butterflies, but they do cultural tours and all kinds of things. And just a special thank you, as George mentioned, to Foster and Andrew, his boys there, posing at the airport before we sadly had to leave to go home. So that's the end of our presentation. If anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I just checked the group chat, and I don't see questions in the group chat yet, but I'd like to just remind folks that they can type in a question in that group chat box if they'd prefer not to speak on camera. Or if you're feeling outgoing tonight, it would be wonderful to hear voices. You can unmute to ask your question. Lynn says fabulous.
It looks like Foster is still on. If you want to unmute and say hello, poor Foster, it's after midnight, I think, where he is in Ghana, but we wanted to thank him for being on and for all his help in Ghana.
Exactly.
He helped me buy my shirt.
Thank you so much for joining us from Ghana. That's exciting.
So
You are welcome. You're welcome.
Oh, I did promise to make one other announcement, folks. I'm sorry. Mike Callahan is coordinating the Christmas bird count in Port Tobacco. And we're having actually several Christmas bird counts taking place a bit later this month. If anyone is interested in those, please note it in the group chat, or you can look in our most recent newsletter on our website that has all the details for the Christmas bird counts. The one for Port Tobacco is, I believe, on the 20th of December. Mike, is that right? You can unmute if you'd like to.
Yes, it's December 20th.
Okay, so there is more details in our newsletter Apologies for not mentioning that earlier. But I do see a couple of questions that have popped up in the chat. Kathy Calvert asked, what time of year did you go and what was the weather like?
November.
We went in, yeah, let's see here. I can look at our little list here. We went from like kind of early January up until like mid-January. Here, I see somebody else was wondering how long we were there. I think it was 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So, yep, we went January 5th to January 24th. It was warm, but you know, that's not unusual. There was some rain here and there, but I don't remember there being
by and
a lot
large
of rain.
it was a good trip from the weather standpoint.
Yeah, it was.
We had decent accommodations. We had great guys, and they were very knowledgeable. And that was impressive to me, is that especially I think Andrew, he was maybe more of a butterfly guy than a bird guy. And I actually enjoyed that because butterflies and birds, they fly, and those flying things interest me. But actually, I think Foster was the guy that held the whole thing together. He and Fiona worked together quite well, I think. And we had a good time. And if you ever thinking about going to Ghana, please contact these guys and you'll be given a very special treat.
And they do specifically butterfly tours too, and mix of whatever you want. So let's see, what was the main reason we went? A bird species to go to Ghana. Well, there are some special birds. That Picathartes that we had at the end there is certainly a special species to see, and you're able to see it well and safely in Ghana. I guess it was a combination of things. Fiona Reed Wildlife Encounters had put together a trip. We've been with Fiona before a number of times, and they're neat combination of bird and mammal and other natural history kind of trips. And so we saw some of the special mammals there too, like the hammerbat and some of the other things that we showed in the program, but just a nice variety of birds. As you could see, a nice variety of habitats. We didn't have any big, huge, long or travel days and things like that. It's, you know, not that big a country, and we could get around well. So we were able to visit a number of different kinds of habitats and just get a good variety of things.
The Egyptian plover is also another one of
Yeah.
the highlight birds. The Egyptian plover, it no longer exists. It's been extirpated from Egypt, but I think we've had it twice now. We've had it in the Gambia and we've had it in Ghana. So my guess is if you were to look at the eBird listing of the Egyptian plover, you'd find out how narrowly defined its range is now and how difficult it is to see. And really the only way to find it is to have somebody from a local company like Shanti take you to where they are. You have to go by all the people doing their laundry, and then if you're lucky, there'll be one down the stream, and eventually it'll fly up into good views. So I guess the rufous-breasted broadbill was another specialty one, plus the chocolate-backed kingfisher. These were birds that Bob Ridgely was impressed to find, and I think if Bob gets excited about it, it's probably worth taking a look at.
There was also a big contingent of mammal watchers on this trip. So a lot of the things we were looking for were really special mammals. And we sometimes divided up into two groups, the mammal people and the bird people. Although everybody was interested in both, and Gwen and I tended to cross hit a lot, right? Go from one group to the other.
Yeah, you wear her out. But we love going with Fiona, and it's because these trips are, you know, well run, and the people that she selects tend to get along very well, and you get such a diversity of the natural history of the area that it's, you know, if you're just interested in birds, I wouldn't say go with a mammal slash, you know, herb slash whatever person like Fiona, but if you're interested in everything out there and you want to experience the natural history of the planet, go with Fiona.
Thanks, George.
You're welcome, sweetie.
Let's see, Kathy Calvert says, are all your birds from this trip on eBird? We didn't put them on eBird, but I don't know if Dawn has worked too, or if Bob Ridgely has.
No,
No,
Bob probably.
I didn't.
You're shaming us, Kathy. We need to get back to work. And
Well, some of us
put our
have
birds on
some of
eBird.
us have other trips to go on besides eBird all the time.
But no, it's a good point. It really is useful to be able to have this information on eBird to for other people to know where things are found and what diversity is out there.
Well,
So we need to get to that.
With Gwen's data, we can put it on eBird when I can't go out the door because I'm so, old and infirmed. I'll then work on eBird. Besides my slides, besides my records, and everything else. Then I'll get to the butterflies, then the herps, and the dragonflies. But it's a good question, Kathy, but we've been delinquent. I have a good record of eBirds at the house, but not anywhere else in the world.
Time to catch up.
Yeah, well, ketchup and mustard. Any other questions? I'd like to say that these things aren't as comfortable for us, or at least me, and it's not as much fun because I prefer the interaction with an audience, but it seems like the two we've done so far, we've got excellent attendance. And I think all you need is electricity and a device like a monitor or a laptop. And if this is the way the future goes, then we'll just stay with it. It was a very good, I think, event, and I appreciate the SMAS people in putting it together. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you so much, Gwen and George. It was fascinating. And I just, does my heart so good because I am, like you guys, a really enthusiastic traveler, and it's been killing me to have to stay home for a year. And I don't know how much longer still this will be true.
Maybe
But,
another year.
Yeah, so this
If you got the passion, go.
It's fantastic. Thank you guys.
The country was safe and the guys were good, and Fiona's done a great job. So keep in touch.
Fantastic. Thank you for providing their contact info too. I will definitely look them up. And thanks everyone for coming out tonight and joining us. It was really, really great. I'm looking one last time in the chat, but I don't see any other last minute questions, just several more thank yous and compliments to our presenters. Great presentations.
Thank you, George.
All right.
Thank you again, everyone, for joining us.
Just
Jack got to watch you tonight.
websites up there again in case.
George.
So, okay.
All right.
Thanks
Thank
again,
you,
everybody.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Bye,
All right.
everyone.
Joining us.
Hi,
Foster.
Foster. Hello, Foster.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi to Andrew. Hi to Andrew Foster.
Yeah, I'm here, but sadly, Andrew is not with me right now. And I will tell him when I see him that it was a great
Okay, well,
presentation.
Good.
Don't
Yeah.
forget.
Yes, I'll do that.
Okay.
Gracias.
So I'm
Bye.
gonna sign us all off. Thank you.